Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And welcome to the, how did we call it now? The Kiddush Club. That's how we call it, Kiddush Club. The L'chaim Club is before, then is the Kiddush, and this is the Kiddush Club. I think we still have to find a better name for the class. Not Kiddush Club because it has nothing to do with Kiddush. And we are not a club because there is no membership or anything. Everybody's invited. Clubs sound so exclusive. But anyway, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you everyone at home for tuning in. Welcome. Hello Priscilla, welcome also. We are going to study a little bit about Chanukah, and I wanted to teach Chanukah with a twist today. I want to go where most rabbis don't dare to go. You will see in a minute what I'm talking about, because we are going to read a little bit about or from the books of Maccabees. Have you ever heard about the book of Maccabees? Maccabees 1, Maccabees 2, and there is also Maccabees 3. And that one is virtually unknown because it didn't make it into any of the versions of the Bible. But Maccabees 1 and Maccabees 2, there are two books in the Catholic Bible. In the Catholic Bible, they still belong to what we call the Old Testament. Okay? But they did not make it into our quote-unquote Old Testament. I don't like to call it Old Testament because it implies there is a new one. We don't believe there is a new. It didn't become part of the Jewish Bible, the book of Maccabees 1, Maccabees 2. Why, you may ask? Thank you for asking. And it's because both books, number one, they were written in Greek, even though there is a theory that Maccabees 1, there is a Hebrew original, but it was lost. But on top of that, it was the whole story of Chanukah happened very close to the time when the Bible was canonized. And you know, most cultures will have the feeling that for something to be holy has to be old, right? It's something that it just happened, it cannot be holy. So it didn't make it as part of the Bible. And there is and even though you could say, well, but it's such an important part, the Hasmoneans entered to the temple and take it again, lighting the menorah again. Well, there is also the thing that by the time that the Bible was canonized, the rabbis did not like the Hasmonean families, at least the one who lived in that generation. Because what happened with the Hasmoneans is that they were priests. And what is the one thing that a priest cannot be? No, but the priest, there is one thing a priest cannot be. King. And they became both, the Hasmoneans, priest and king and rulers. That is a huge no-no in Judaism. So you can imagine. And because of that, corruption started to escalate after the first couple of generations of Hasmoneans, to the point that when the Romans ended up destroying the temple, that was part of this domino effect, believe it or not, that started with Chanukah and started with a family that decided, because they have the whole power, to become priest and ruler. Even in the Torah, you will see that you have Aaron and you have Moses, right? And even because you say, well, but they were the same family. Well, yes, but Aaron kind of was, from Aaron, we have a brand new lineage, which is the Kohanim. So he's not a technical Levite anymore. So it was split. So there was a big beef between the rabbis and the Hasmoneans, and that was another reason why the Maccabees 1 and Maccabees 2 never made it into the Hebrew Bible, but it did make it into the Catholic Bible. Nevertheless, it is kind of studied as a reference at seminary, a Jewish seminary. And there is a Maccabees 3 that it didn't even make it to the Catholic Bible. No, Ben Sira, those are the Apocrypha. We call it the Apocrypha. There are other books like Maccabees 1, Maccabees 2, Ben Sira, Edith, Tobias, Ecclesiastes. I can't remember all the books. Patrick, you are sending me like a trip like, back to the seminary. You think I remember what I studied at seminary? But I studied those books as a reference. So I learned that sometimes rabbis read those books as a reference, but it's not part of our theology. But nevertheless, what happened that's what I'm going to read a little bit in this class about Maccabee 1, Maccabee 2. They have the facts pretty much aligned with what the rabbis say about Chanukah. That's why I think it's a shame that they were not part of the Bible for political reasons, because the story is virtually the same, and they add one layer that we are going to see, that it could add a lot of new meaning to Chanukah, and it could make it more meaningful to more people. Because if I think of Chanukah, the first thing that crossed my mind is little kids singing, "I have a little dreidel." And if you think that Chanukah is a festival for kids, you are completely wrong. Same with Purim. There was, the masquerades and things for kids. It's not for kids. There is nothing less for kids than Chanukah. Chanukah is a festival of Jewish identity. And that's why I call the class the inner fire. Because Chanukah is a festival of Jewish identity. And that's why it's a little painful sometimes to see that we try to use Chanukah as an opportunity to be like other cultures. Yeah, we don't have a Christmas tree, but we could have a Chanukah bush, right? And so forth. But Chanukah is the opportunity for the year to say, I can be a Jew, finally. Finally, we are celebrating that nobody will tell you how to be a Jew, right? And instead of transforming Chanukah in a festival of Jewish identity, we kind of water it down to look like something else, which I believe is a little bit of against the spirit of the Chanukah, and it's something that you're going to see that is in the book of Maccabees, okay, in an explicit way. So let's start. Before that, let me go to the text. And Chanukah is observed for 8 nights and days, starting on the 25th day of Kislev. Okay? That never changes. I always say when somebody asks me, when is Chanukah, Rabbi? Next year. And I said, 25th of Kislev. Easy peasy. And I said, Rabbi, you're so funny. Tell me in December, when is Chanukah? Because the civil date changes every year, but the Hebrew day never changes, 25th of Kislev. So, in case you wonder, it begins this Sunday night, Chanukah. Sunday night, you light the first candle, okay? And it will end in the evening of Monday, December 22nd, at the end of the 8th day. That's another mistake that everybody makes. That you feel that once you light the 8th light of Chanukah, it's over. No, you still have to go through the whole next day. And then at the end of that last day, that's when Chanukah is over. Okay, we come to synagogue, we read Torah every day. There is full Hallel. It's a big deal, Chanukah. It's a big deal.
But the candle only doesn't last the whole time.
No, but you keep lighting candles, right? But that's what I mean. But people think that the last night of Chanukah is the last day of Chanukah. But that's not true. Last day of Chanukah is the beginning of the last day.
Yes.
Okay, just to be sure that we are aware of that.
So it's after Mincha Mariv, yeah?
So Sunday after Mariv, you light the candles.
Yes, and then the next day.
Every day after Mariv, with one exception. What is the exception? Friday night. That you're going to light the candles before the Shabbat candles. Okay? And then on Saturday night after Havdalah. Those are the kind of two things that you have to have. We're going to study about this later on. Now, if I ask you, how many miracles we remember in Chanukah? The answer is very easy, 2. Okay? 2. How many miracles?
2.
Thank you. Glad you know it. 2 miracles. Miracle number 1, and I will read it, is for you text A. Miracle number 1, the Talmud says, what is the reason for Chanukah? As our rabbis taught, on the 25th day of Kislev, the 8th day of Chanukah begin, during which it is forbidden to eulogize the dead or to fast. For when the Greeks entered the sanctuary of the temple, they defiled all of the oil. When the Hasmoneans overpowered them and were victorious, they searched but could find only one cruse of oil that was intact with the seal of the high priest. It contained only sufficient oil to kindle the menorah for one day. But a miracle occurred. Again, this is miracle number one. The Talmud says, a miracle occurred, and they were able to light with it for 8 days. The next year, they designated this day as a festival, which is a recitation of hymns of praise and thanksgiving. Okay? It's obvious because when they lit the menorah, they didn't know that the oil was going to last for 8 days. So the first Chanukah was celebrated the year after, because the rabbis decided to do that. And why did the rabbi decide to do that according to the Talmud? Because of the miracle of the oil. It does not mention the Hasmonean victory as a miracle. Can you see that? And again, why is that? Because the rabbis didn't like them so much by then. This is after all the good things that they did when they overpowered the Greeks. But back when this text was written in the Talmud, the rabbis were suffering all the downfall of the Hasmoneans and how they invited the Romans to Judea, and then the rest is history. All the suffering that ended up with the destruction of the temple and a big exile of the Jewish people. So again, long story short, first miracle of the oil. Why? Because the Talmud said so. That's the short answer, because the Talmud said so, which is quite interesting. Okay? So next, second miracle. The second miracle, it will be defined or explained, not in the Talmud, but in the Siddur, in the prayer book. And it goes like this, and I quote, we read this text every day of Chanukah during services. The text starts with Alanissim. Alanissim Velapurkan. We read Alanissim Velapurkan, a variation of the text on Chanukah, on Purim, and Yom HaTzmaut. So it goes like this. Alanissim Velapurkan. We are grateful for the miracle, the salvation, the mighty deeds, the victories and the battles that you performed for our ancestors in those days at this time. In the days of Matityahu, the son of Yohanan, the high priest, the Hasmoneans, and his sons, when the evil Greek kingdom arose against your people Israel to make them forget your Torah and cause them to transgress the laws that you willed in your great mercy. You stood by them in their time of distress. You fought their struggle, judged their claim, and retaliated on their behalf. You delivered the strong into the hands of the weak, the many in the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the evil into the hands of the righteous, and the wanton. I guess they ate Chinese food in those days. It says the wanton. Into the hands of those who were occupied with the study of your Torah. And for yourself you made a great and sanctified name in your world. And for your nation Israel you wrought a great victory and deliverance even this very day. Afterwards, your children enter the precincts of your house, clear out your sanctuary from the idols that have been placed there, purify your temple, and kindle lights in the courtyards of your holy place. And they designated these 8 days of Chanukah to offer thanks and praise to your great name. Which is interesting. It mentions the battle as a miracle, but what is not mentioning? The oil. Isn't that weird? The Talmud doesn't mention the miracle of the war, and the Siddur doesn't mention the miracle of the oil. I don't know exactly why. There are many different interpretations of why they purposely.
There's the third miracle.
Which is?
That we still do it today.
Oh, well, somebody said that the other miracle is that they actually decided to light the menorah. That was a real miracle, right? Can you imagine the discussion back then? Well, we have oil for only one night. Should we light the menorah? Or maybe we should wait 8 days until new oil comes, right? Well, let's create a committee. Let's send a poll to the congregation to see, what we should do. But seriously, how is it possible that they were unified into the decision to do the most difficult one, which is, let light it anyway. Who knows? Some people said that is a miracle by itself. And that is the miracle of the first day of Chanukah. Because if you count the 8 days of Chanukah as a miracle of the oil, the first night there was no miracle. Because the oil was intended to last one night. The real miracle started the second night. I bet you never thought about that. There is no miracle the first night. So why do we still celebrate the miracle the first night? It's the miracle of the unity that make them believe in miracles. And they went and lit it anyway. Okay? So again, long story short, the real reason, there are 2 miracles presented in scriptures. One is in the Talmud, the other one is in the Siddur, and they both omit a very important part of what we celebrate today, Chanukah. Of course, in this day and age, we celebrate both miracles, right? By the way, I don't know if you noticed, Phyllis, that I listen to feedback. You see the font?
Yes.
Can you read it?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, people were saying last time that the font was too small, so I made it bigger this time. So, what I want to tell you also is that when we think about Chanukah as a celebration, what if I tell you that the celebration at this time of the year, the celebration of light, already existed in humanity? Will you believe me?
Yes.
Why?
Winter solstice.
The winter solstice happened at this time of the year.
But was that not a pagan holiday?
Well, I wouldn't call it a pagan holiday. I will call it a holiday of every culture around that time, because the winter solstice was a phenomenon that affected everybody equally. So every culture will react to it differently, but it's something that it already exists in Jewish consciousness. Let's put it that way. There is a midrash that predates Chanukah, okay? Predates Chanukah, that is talking about Adam, the first man. And listen what it says. This is text C. This is text C. When Adam noticed that the days were getting shorter, he said, "Is the world becoming darker because of my sins? Will it soon return to chaos?" And this is what God meant when he punished me with mortality. Do you understand this? When the Torah starts the narration of the creation, it said that before creation the world was tohu bavohu, which means, it's translated as void and chaotic. Okay? And then the creation was created. And eventually Adam and Eve were created. They sinned. They ate from the forbidden fruit. And God said to them, because you ate, you're going to die. But then God never gave them the information on how death was going to happen. So, Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and they went to live a life like we do, in the quote-unquote real world. And then what happens? Eventually, Adam noticed that the days were getting shorter and shorter. Because when was Adam created?
On the 6th day?
Die, da, die, 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 da, die, 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 die. What is that? Da, die, da, 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 die. Huh? Rosh Hashanah. Adam and Eve were created on Rosh Hashanah, right? September. And then what happened in September with the weather?
It's starting colder.
Colder and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, and the days are shorter, the nights are longer. So Adam, who didn't have anybody to teach him better, we say, whoa, is this what God meant when he said, I'm going to kill you? That little by little the days are going to be shorter, shorter, shorter until there will be no more light, and it will be only darkness, and the world will go back to tohu vavohu. That's what Adam thought. He didn't know better. He didn't have yeshiva to go and study. So this is what the Midrash says. So let's see what happened. So when he noticed that the days were getting shorter and shorter, he prayed and fasted for 8 days. When the period prior to the winter solstice arrived, he saw that the days were now growing longer. He realized this is the way of the world. So basically what happened is that Adam said, no. It's not that I'm going to die this way. There's a cycle here. I understand now. And the days started to be longer and longer and longer. So what happened? Adam made an 8 days celebration on the 25th of Kislev, basically. What is that? Chanukah without being Chanukah. It's an 8-day celebration at the time of the winter solstice. Let's put it that way. Now, why 8?
7 days is regular, and that is what we have, and then the 8th day is the spiritual exception.
Yeah. So the 8 in Judaism is the number of miracles, or the number of some things that are beyond nature. Let's put it that way. 7 is the number of nature and the number of material world. But I don't know, guys, if you realize how embedded the number 7 is in human culture as a synonym of material world. Let me give you an example. Of course, we have the 7 days of the week, right? 7 colors of the rainbow. But if you go to a casino, to the slot machines, which one is the number that is going to give you all the money? Have you ever make the connection? Connect the dot. The number 7 is the number of money, right? But we try to go beyond 7. Beyond 7 is 8. That's why, back to the Midrash, when Adam celebrated for 8 days, this is a celebration that goes beyond nature, right?
Can I ask a question? How can you say that Adam was born in September? We don't go by the English calendar.
No, it's on Rosh Hashanah.
Okay.
On Rosh Hashanah. So it's Rosh Hashanah is the end of creation. So the world started to be created a week before, right? And then it's not that some people think that Rosh Hashanah God said, let it be light. The let it be light happened a week before Rosh Hashanah. And then Rosh Hashanah is the creation of Adam and Eve. Okay? So that is, so that's why I wanted to share with you that there is a midrash acknowledging that it was this kind of celebration for 8 days on this time of the year, way before Chanukah. Okay? And then again, it's the number 8. Chanukah is 8 days because it's a miracle. 8 miracles. It makes sense now? What do we use to light the menorah? Sorry? Shemen.
Yeah.
But but oil is shemen. The letters of which number?
Shmona, 8.
What about that? What about neshama? Soul. Neshama, soul, is also the same letters of Shmona. So they're all related. Neshama, soul, oil, and the number 8, they're all related, even in the way we write it. Okay? Those things in English you will never see it, that pattern. You have to go to the Hebrew to see the connection between all of that. So when you use the Shem, and that's why, and you will see this, for example, with Chabad, and saying that they go to great lengths to try to light a menorah that is fueled with oil because of the connection of Shemen with Shmona and the miracles, right?
Even the sign of infinity is a lying down 8.
Yeah, I don't know about that where is that coming from, but yeah.
What it is.
So let's continue because I wanted to show you more about this specific time of the year and why Chanukah became such a big deal. Because let's be honest, a miracle for a little bit of oil that lasted 8 days, or even a miracle of a military victory. In Jewish history, we have probably greater miracles and greater battles.
Splitting the sea.
Why the rabbis were so fixated with make a celebration at this time of the year with that? Okay? It's because the time of the year, specifically connected to the winter solstice, has a special, let's say, power. Okay? I'll read now text D. According to Kabbalah, each holiday opens a gate during that particular time of the year and offers us spiritual powers that are not available during other days. The same thing happened on Rosh Hashanah, for example. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, high holidays. What is the power of the high holidays?
That you have 8 days.
No, but the high holidays. For the high holidays, what is the power of the high holidays?
To open the gates of heaven.
Between Rosh Hashanah
And Yom Kippur,
and Yom Kippur, the gates are open.
for repentance. So the power, the cosmic power of the high holidays is that there is a stronger connection between earth and heaven for our prayers to be accepted related to repentance. Okay? So every holidays will have, if you go to Kabbalah, a different gate that is open and different powers are available to you if you know how to tap into those powers. What is the power that is available to us during Chanukah? Let's see. On Chanukah, the gate that opens connects us to the power of miracles and the power to overcome the mundane nature in order to turn the impossible into a reality. You understand that? That is the superpower of Chanukah. Matityahu, the Hasmoneans, discovered this spiritual power and paved the way for us. Now, on every Chanukah, we can draw into our lives the power of miracles. Many Kabbalists teach that the 25th of Kislev was designated as Chanukah since the time of creation, and that's why the connection with Adam, and Adam celebrating 8 days at this time of the year. Matityahu discovered this and made it available to each and every one of us. Historically, Chanukah's miracle happened at that time during the 2nd century BC, and in that place in Israel, because there were people who were willing to do everything possible and go against the limitation of nature and reason in order to fight for the rights to protect their beliefs. So in other words, Chanukah is an invitation for us to be brave, to be bold, and to go beyond our physical limitations. This is the time of the year to dream big and to go against our physical limitations. If you look at the parsha that we read during Chanukah, the story of Joseph,
Is it always the same? Each Chanukah we reach Parsha of Joseph?
yes, it's always the two parshiot, sometimes it's one not the other, but it's always the one related to Joseph. It's Vayeshev and Miketz. Those are the two that we read during Chanukah. And Joseph was the one who was bold enough to dream about something that in theory was impossible. You are the son of a shepherd. Your destiny is to be a shepherd until you die. And he dared to dream big, and he ended up being the viceroy of Egypt. Right? It's very interesting. We read that story during the time of Chanukah. So, but maybe I should talk about that next week. But I think I'm the one preaching, sermonizing next week. Maybe. Let's see if I remember. Okay, let's continue. With the next text E. The holiday of Chanukah, it's all about light. In its essence, it connects us to the concealed light of creation. Why does it say this? Again, let me be a little Kabbalist here, just a tiny little bit. If you read the Torah, if you read the Bible, at the very beginning, it said, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et. At the beginning, God created heaven and earth, right? V'aretz hayta tohu vavohu, and the earth was chaotic and void. And God said,
Let there be light.
what is that light? Because the sun, the moon, the stars were not created yet. So the light that was created on the first day of creation, when God said, let it be light, where is that light?
Well, on the 4th day, it says, let there be day, it says,
Day and night. Yeah. But this came after. So it's always a mystery. What is this first light of creation when the stars were not created yet? So the Kabbalists talk about the concealed light of God. It's a light that is available, but it's not related to the sun, the moon, etc. Okay? So back to this text. Now you can understand a little bit more of these concepts. It says, the holiday of Chanukah is all about light. In its essence, the essence of Chanukah, it connects us to the concealed light of creation. So on Chanukah is when we tapped into the light that is mentioned at the beginning of the Torah. The sages tell us that the name of the holiday comes from two words, Chanu, rested, and Ka, 25. Of course, what happened is the word Chanukah means dedication. Okay? When you, for example, move into a new house, when you put the mezuzah, it's a ceremony that is called Chanukat Habayit, the dedication of the house. Okay? But it doesn't mean that at the same time the word Chanukah could be understood in a different way. So when you have different layers of understanding the thing. The rabbis noticed that the word Chanukah could also be split into two, Chanu and Ka. And by the way, also Chanu and Chanukah is also connected to the word Chinuch, that means education. But that will be connected to in a little bit when I read from the book of Maccabees, and you will see that. Okay, but let's go back to this Kabbalistic approach. Chanu, rested, Ka, 25, the two letters in Hebrew that means 25. It means that the Maccabees rested on the 25th of the month of Kislev. On that day, they finished the cleaning of the holy temple from the impurities that the Greek brought into it. They also found pure oil with the seal of the high priest to light the menorah. And again, this is something that you will find in every kosher product. Have you ever ordered kosher food in a plane?
Yes.
Comes the hasher.
It comes wrapped, and then you will have a flight attendant coming to you, and they will say to you, or to me, for example, "Sir, can you open it?" And I remember the first time that I ordered kosher food in a plane. I said, "Can't you open?" I said, "Nope. We have instructions that the passenger has to open it, because if the seal is broken, it's not kosher anymore." So this is exactly the same thing. They have all this oil with the seal of the high priest. If the seal is broken, because you don't know, that oil is not kosher anymore. And that's why they say they found only one cruse of oil. They have more oil, but that was the only one with the seal intact, so that was the only one that it was halachically kosher. Okay? The purpose of the menorah was to channel the light from Binah to our world, Malchut. And this is two Sefirot of Kabbalah. Binah is the understanding, Malchut is the world, it's the world, the material world. The menorah has 7 candles that were lit with pure oil that it was examined and selected by the high priest. The first time the word light appeared in the Torah is in the 25th word of Genesis 1:3. Do you know that? The word light is the 25th letter. And what is the day of Chanukah? The 25th of the month. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. The first light of creation included within it the ability to see beyond time and space. We learn from the sages and the Zohar that God decided to reduce this light in order to limit its use, because if people were to have access to the higher light, they may have used it for negative purposes. The light that it was taken away is called the concealed light. It is reserved only for few righteous people living in this world, and for the world to come that will be after the world is corrected and cleansed from all negativity. It also includes once we died. The day we died, that light is available to us, and we can immediately see and understand everything that we couldn't understand in this world. And let's be honest, we all have questions about why did it happen? Why did this person die? Why this tragedy was allowed, right? We cannot see the reason. Kabbalah believes, don't worry, one day after you move to the other world, the light of creation will be available to you and you will instantly understand everything. Okay, but on Chanukah, we have a glimpse of that. We are closer to that light. Let's continue. The secret is revealed in the verse above. The two lights are two different levels of light. After God said, let it be light, it comes again, and there was light. You see, the rabbis always point out that there are no unnecessary words in the Torah. Right? If God said, let it be light, let's be honest, can you expect anything but light? Right? If a person said to you, oh, can I borrow the newspaper? I will bring it back tomorrow. The person may bring it or not, right? Because we are people. But if God said, let it be light, you cannot expect anything but light because God fulfilled what God says. So why the repetition? And there was light. That's what the text is trying to answer here. Okay, and there was light. It was not because the Torah is surprised that God managed to create light with his words, but because of the difference between the first light and the second light that came to be. In every generation, there are 36 righteous people that they are special channels for the light of creation to feed and sustain the world. The only opportunity we have to come closer to this light is when we light the Chanukah candles. During the 8 days, we light up to 36 candles that connect us with the concealed light. Have you ever thought about that? How many candles we light? 36. And there is a midrash that it says that there are 36 righteous people around the world. We don't know who they are. They don't even know who they are.
These are the door of doors, right?
No, it's in every generation, there will be always 36 righteous people, and the world is not destroyed because of their merits. And we don't know who they are. And they are not even aware that they are one of the 36 sustaining the world. That is in the word of the Midrash, the word of belief. Is not factual, I cannot prove it to you, right? But it's in Jewish tradition. And that is related also to the light of Chanukah and how many candles we light to honor those 36 righteous people. And also that the other thing that is giving you a clue is that the lights of Chanukah cannot be used for anything except to look at them. You know that the shamash, the extra candle that we add to the Chanukiah, is not to light the others. People think that the extra one is to light the others. Wrong. And I will prove it to you in a minute. If you have a Chanukiah that is fueled by olive oil, how can you use the shamash to light the others? You can't. So why do you need a shamash and a Chanukiah that is pure olive oil? Because the shamash is not there to light the others. The shamash is there to light the room. And because that light gets blended with the other, because you cannot distinguish one from the other, it is okay to use the whole Chanukiah to illuminate. Otherwise, we'll have a problem, because if the Chanukiah is supposed to be just to remember the miracle and not to illuminate the room, well, it's illuminating the room anyway. So what the rabbis did is to add an extra light to illuminate the room, and because they get blended, then it's okay. It kind of reminds me to a firing squad. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
have you ever seen? Sorry?
One has a bullet, the rest have blanks.
Or I think it's the other way around. I think they all have bullets and one has a blank. So you never know which one is the one who killed the prisoner. Right? So this is kind of a similar concept. And that's why we are the shamash. So the shamash is not to light the other candles. Okay? The things to light candles is a new thing. It's a new thing. Before was only oil. Anyway, So, again, the concealed light, and there's the other messages of Chanukah. Okay, now let's go to the book of Maccabees. I promised you this at the beginning, and I promise you that this is going to introduce a whole new level into what we understand about Chanukah. And again, I know it hasn't been canonized, the book of Maccabees. It was not part of the Bible, but it's still illuminating, and it still brings a lot of insights into what we understand about Chanukah. There are two books of Maccabees by two different authors. It's not that one is a continuation of the other. Okay? And the versions the original versions that are available to us are in Greek. It may have been a Hebrew version for Maccabees 1, but it was lost. Okay? But nevertheless, let's see what it says. Maccabees 1, chapter 1, verses 11 to 15. Listen to this. In those days, certain renegades came out from Israel and misled many, saying, "Let us go and make a covenant with the Gentiles around us. For since we separated from them, many disasters have come upon us." Does it sound familiar? This argument? Does it sound familiar, this argument?
Yes.
Let's be like them. And if we are like them, they're going to like us. All the problems that we have is because we insist to be different. Stop with the nonsense. Let's be like them and they're going to like us. Spoiler alert, it never worked. It never worked. Let's continue. Unfortunately, and I will continue reading, this proposal pleased them, and some of the people eagerly went to the king, who authorized them to observe the ordinances of the Gentiles. So they built a gymnasium in Jerusalem according to the Gentile custom, and removed the mark of circumcision and abandoned the Holy Covenant. They joined with the Gentiles and sold themselves to do evil. Let me go ahead. I recommend try to get this online and read it. It's fascinating. Book of Maccabees. It reads really nicely, the story. Now, let's jump ahead to chapter 4. You can imagine that the opinion of let's go what the Gentile do, created a fracture within the Jewish people, right? And that was what empowered the race of the Hasmoneans to reclaim Judaism for the Jews. So, what happened? Being jump ahead. Early in the morning on the 25th of the 9th month, that is, the month of Kislev. And again, 9 months is according to the biblical calculation. Kislev is according to the rabbinic calendar. So it's interesting that the book of Maccabees mentions both the biblical calendar and the rabbinic calendar, just to be clear what date we are talking about. In the year 148, they arose and offered sacrifice in accordance with the law on the new altar of burnt offering that they had constructed, on the anniversary of the day on which the Gentiles had desecrated it. We have a new information now. Book of Maccabees said that the 25th of Kislev was not just the time when they rededicated the temple, that was also the anniversary of the day when the temple was defiled. We don't read that in the Talmud. But this one is bringing this extra piece of information, so it made it extra meaningful for them. On the anniversary of the day on which the Gentiles had desecrated it, on that very day it was dedicated with hymns, harps, flute, and cymbals. All the people prostrated themselves in adoration and praised heaven, who had granted success to their endeavors. They celebrated the dedication of the altar for 8 days and joyfully offered burnt offerings and sacrifices of praise and thanksgiving. They decorated the front of the temple with gold crowns and shields. They restored the gates and the chambers for the priests and furnished them with doors. There was great rejoicing among the people, inasmuch as the disgrace inflicted by the Gentiles had been removed. Then Judah, his brothers, and the entire congregation of Israel decreed that the days marking the rededication of the altar should be observed with joy and gladness for 8 days. every year of the anniversary, beginning on the 25th day of the month of Kislev. Okay? Any mentioning of the oil? No. Not necessarily. I mean, it is, but not as a miracle. Maybe it was a miracle, but the book doesn't mention. But it does mention that they lit the candles again. So we don't know. But it's interesting that it says that the temple was defiled on the 25th of Kislev before. It may have been, I don't know, that it was part of some kind of pagan celebration of the winter solstice. And that was how it was defiled before. And it was exactly that date. So when they reconquered the temple, said, this time for the winter solstice, let's make it Jewish.
Or is the winter solstice always on the 25th?
No, but now because the way we synchronize the calendar now is different the way it used to be back then. And so they may have more flexibility in those days around this time. We don't know all the details about that. But yeah, it's very interesting that they did it this way. But again, the date is the same. Book of Maccabees 1 preserve exactly the same day that we celebrate Chanukah. There is another theory that is in the Talmud that it mentions that the 8 days corresponds to the 8 days of Sukkot. Like Sukkot plus Shmini Atzeret. Why? We have to use our imagination here. What was the last festival before Chanukah?
Is it a fasting?
According to the Torah, what was in the calendar the last festival before Chanukah? Sukkot. So the theory here is that the Hasmoneans, they really wanted to speed up the war, to enter to the temple, clean it up, and celebrate Sukkot at the time of Sukkot. But it didn't work that way. The war extended a little longer. So they pledged that as soon as they entered to the temple, the first thing they were going to do is to celebrate. What do you do in Sukkot? What do we bring to synagogue? What do we bring to synagogue in Sukkot? Let's see what Maccabees 2 said. Listen, second book of Maccabees, listen to this. The purification of the temple took place on the very same day on which the temple had been profaned by Gentiles. They agree on this. That is, on the 25th day of the same month of Kislev. They celebrated it for 8 days with rejoicing in the manner of the festival of, that is, festival of Sukkot. Remembering how, not long before, during the festival of Booth, they had been wandering in the mountains and caves like wild animals. Therefore, carrying ivy, wreathed, wands and beautiful branches, and also fronds of palm, they offer hymns of thanksgiving, that is, Hallel, that we do on Sukkot. We sing Hallel in the synagogue, to God, who had given success to the purifying of his own holy place. So here it does acknowledge the miracle nature of the war. They decreed by public edict, ratified by vote, that the whole nation of the Jews should observe these days every year. Okay? So it means basically, in other words, that the rabbis decided it, because that's what they did. They will vote. And they decided that Chanukah was going to be a thing. But you see, even the second book of Maccabees acknowledged the connection between Chanukah and Sukkot. So it looks like the very first time that they entered to the temple, the first thing they did is they celebrated a quasi-Sukkot, because they couldn't do it a couple of months before, 3 months before, because the war was dragging a little longer. Okay, so that's what it is. Now, I want to. Yeah, one more thing about the Talmud. I have to mention this. This is very important to understand why we light the Chanukah the way we do. Rabbis taught The precept of Chanukah requires one life for each man of his household, and those who seek to beautify the mitzvot. Hello, Rabbi. So let me mention this, because to me this is the most interesting thing of Chanukah. If you go to the Talmud, said at the beginning, when people started to celebrate Chanukah, they used to light one candle per household. Okay? That's the way you celebrate Chanukah? One candle? No. But that was said, those were the regular people. But said, those who seek to beautify the mitzvot, people who are a little bit more religious, right? They will still light one candle, but per household member. But that's still not the way we celebrate Chanukah. But then the Talmud continues. Now, concerning to those who are particularly eager to beautify the mitzvot, it means those who were ultra-religious, the crazy religious. Well, among those, there were two traditions. The house of Shammai says, on the first day, he lights 8 and then decreases in number each day. So you start the first night of Hanukkah with 8, second day, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Psh, Happy New Year. So basically 8 to 1. And then Beit Hillel said the other opinion is 1 to 8. 1 to 8. Okay? So what I was going to say is, I don't know if you realize that the way we observe Hanukkah today, even the most secular person in Judaism, the most secular one, is observing Hanukkah the way the ultra-religious used to celebrate Hanukkah back in the day. Nobody will dare to go back to light only one candle, right? We go 1 to 8, which, by the way, does give you a clue that Hillel won the debate, because we go to 1 to 8. So, and why did Hillel win? Right? And I will read now the yellow part. The house of Hillel's reason for requiring a continual increase from 1 to 8 lights is the principle that in sacred matters we elevate and do not lower the degree of sanctity. In sacred matters, we always elevate and we never decrease. And remember this, because this that it was discussed at the time of figuring out the tradition for Hanukkah became halakha, became Jewish law that basically transpired, permeated into every other halachic decisions. We always elevate, we never decrease. Why is that important to understand? Because the rabbi said, once you embrace a way of observing a mitzvah, a commandment, you can never lower the standard. So if you want to become religious, which is great, never go to the most stringent opinion for everything you do. Because if you go there, according to this principle, you can never make it more lenient. Let me give you a quick example. Do you know anything about kosher milk?
Oh, it's
There is kosher milk,
and challah.
and there is Halav Israel. Halav Israel is milk that is not only kosher, but is also produced and supervised all the way along by a Jew. You can get it in Sobeys here, at Superstore. It's super expensive and super specific, right? Halav Israel. So if you adopt Halav Israel, you can never go back to regular kosher milk. If you go to regular kosher milk, eventually you can, quote unquote, upgrade to Halav Israel if you ever want. But why? Because of Hanukkah. Because it was discussed in sacred matters, you always increase, you never decrease. So you have to be very careful when you embrace a commandment, what you say. Okay? And then I added for you, I don't know if you needed this or not, but I put for you the calendar of how Hanukkah is going to be observed this year, right? And when you say the blessings, I couldn't make it any simpler. I couldn't make it any simpler, because you can put this in outside your fridge or something, and you can always know what to do, so you don't need to go to every page of the calendar. You already have it there, and then you have the thing. Okay. So, why don't we finish the class singing together the blessings? And I know you probably know it, but I'm always streaming, and I see a lot of people there. So the idea here is my voice will stay in the recording. So if you want to check again how to sing the blessings, you can go to YouTube, check this class towards the end, and you can replay the blessings. Okay? So let's sing it together. You have it in page 6. The first blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kitshanu v'mitzvotav V'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Chanukah. Blessing 2. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim ahem bazman hazeh. And the third blessing, you will recite it only the first time you light the Chanukah for the season. Usually the first night, but what if on Sunday you're not available? And then the first time you light it is on Monday, so you will recite this one only on Monday and so forth. But for most people, the first time it's going to be on Sunday. So that's when you recite this blessing, and let's sing it together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'echeyanu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lahazman hazeh. And now, amen. Something very interesting. Remember, first you recite all the blessings, and then you light the candles. You can light the shamash first, because it's not halachic, that light. But in Judaism, with a very few exceptions, first is the blessing, second is the action. People get confused because the light of Shabbat, that first you light, then you bless. But the reason for that is because once you say the blessing, Shabbat is Shabbat, then you cannot light. So you have to light it first. But because on Chanukah, there is no restriction of lighting fire, first you start the blessing, then when you finish all the singing, then you start lighting, right? And remember, you light from
Right to left.
Right to left.
One to the
Yes.
you put the candles, right to left, but then you light left to right when you light. When you are facing the Chanukah. People on the other side, will notice it in the other way. That is always the confusion. Is it because we usually put it next to a window, right? So is it left to right or right to left from the point of view of people watching, or from the point of view of the lighter? It's from the point of view of the lighter. So people, we have a mirror version of the Chanukah from the other side of the mirror, of the thing. Okay? So thank you, everyone. And stay tuned for future classes. I hope to see you there. And thank you, everyone at home, for tuning in. Thank you for your messages. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach, everyone.